Great. Okay, are we ready? You just let me know when we're ready.
All right, Abigail's going to start talking through her presentation. She's on the screen. She's out in Memphis. I'll let her introduce herself, but thank you so much for coming and for being flexible in our delivery here.
Yeah. So thanks for. I'll try not to flash my hands too much. I had a little accident a couple days ago and have stitches all over my hand. So I'll do, I'll do my best to not scare you with my hand talking. Um, so thanks for the flexibility of, yeah, doing it this way. And especially since I usually do a little bit of like dialogue to start a presentation so I know who I'm presenting to and talking to. And especially since I'm not there and can't like feel your energy, I would love if we could just unmute, and if anyone who is here is able to just like share their name and what interested them in being here. And I see some kiddos, so that's fun. Yeah, just share like what made you want to come and what interested you. That would be awesome.
Anybody want to share?
I'm Nikki, and it was a flyer. I see Tyler, who's my acupuncturist, and so yeah, just curious, and this is my kids and their speech therapist, and we're double dipping.
Fabulous.
Great.
And I'll also introduce myself for the sake of being here. My name is Allison. I actually professionally am a registered dietitian who is just opening a private practice in the same space as Tyler and Abigail, and I am here just supporting Abigail. I'm also a mother, so I'm excited to hear more about your work, Abigail. Oh, and do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Gretchen. I'm a physical therapist, and I do brain neurofeedback, also in the Community Wellness Center.
Yeah.
So I just came to support these guys and what they're doing.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, take it away, Abigail.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so I'm gonna do just a little see how my presentation works here. Great. I'm going to share a little bit about my story and how I got into this type of work. And then, because the Mayan abdominal massage is the hands-on portion of what I do, which I'm going to mostly talk about. But there's a lot of other work that influences and is woven into those sessions. So then I'm going to share a little bit about what other trainings I've done and how those influence what I do. And then some of the history of the Mayan abdominal massage modality. It's just got a really rich history. It's super interesting, and the lineage is pretty small. There's only like 2 people who have brought it from Belize, from the person who has created it, and so some of that story really influences how I approach things, and it's really fascinating and kind of some fun stories. So I'll share a little bit about that, and then I'll talk a little bit about the science of how the body work actually works, and what I studied with hormone cycles before I did the hands-on bodywork portion, which I call, and my teachers called, the inner seasons, which is just a concept which I'll explain about like the hormonal rhythms that we have, our inner seasons as menstruating bodies. So most of what I'll be talking about is through the lens of a menstruating body. this type of modality is good for any type of human because it works on the digestive tract. But there's a lot of womb specific care and caring to the uterus and the muscles and ligaments around the uterus. And then most of my background and studies have been around holistically healing menstruating sexual hormone cycles. And so that's just kind of where I specialize in, mostly like pre-fertility, postpartum, hormonal issues such as like PMDD, PMS, things like that. And then I'll talk a little bit about the kind of the difference and how some things can help non-menstruating bodies, but most of the lens and the people that I help are menstruators. So it'll be mostly kind of through that lens. I got into the holistic healing world in general because I experienced a pretty big sexual and physical trauma in my early 20s, and I started looking to different mindfulness practices, trauma healing modalities, and yoga to start healing some of those things. I did a yoga teacher training. I did a few years of trauma-informed yoga. So I learned a lot about how trauma impacts the brain, and that has really impacted a lot of how I look at hormones, because trauma is very impacted by our hormones. Our stress hormones, are deeply related to the rest of our hormones and those cycles and rhythms that we have. And so I was actually reading a book about healing sexual trauma, and it was talking about our lack of sex education in our school system, and it was talking about the hormone cycle and ovulation and when that comes. And I was like, what? How do I not know this? I'm like my mid-20s, I should know these things, and these are like basic stuff. And I had a lot of kind of like rage about it in the midst of trying to heal. I had like diagnosed PTSD, and that led to a lot of panic attacks. I was having a lot of what I didn't realize at the time was cyclical depression, and I didn't really have a lot of like period pain, like pain in my body that was like cramps related. That's why I didn't realize it was so cyclical, because it was mostly emotional. It was mostly panic attacks, depression, suicidal thoughts, things like this, where I didn't realize that there was patterns to it until I was reading this book and started tracking my cycle. And then I started tracking some of those patterns and being like, wow, like every day 17, I'm having the same type of panic attack. And it was also not like premenstrual, which is kind of the common times that are known that we have like heightened emotions, right? It was like kind of in the middle of my cycle, and didn't realize that, and I'll show you the graph later if you don't know this, there's a huge drop in estrogen right after ovulation in the middle of your cycle, which is common to have maybe a couple emotional days or even physical symptoms in the middle of your cycle. I didn't know that because I didn't know about the estrogen drop, and I didn't realize it was cyclical because over an entire month span, 2 days, you just don't see that it's the same exact days over a whole month, So once I started tracking my cycle, I started seeing some of those patterns, and then was super fascinated by it. And just with some of the other mindfulness and the yoga, and I was doing some different like energy work, mostly for myself, for my own healing practice. In the middle of that, was curious about the hormonal patterns, and so I was like, oh, this is a cyclical thing. I wonder what's going on with my hormones. Did some hormone testing, then was also diagnosed with PMDD, which is pretty much just really bad PMS, but for like half your cycle instead of just a few days before your period. So it's after ovulation when that drop happens instead of estrogen coming back up. Which will make sense once I get into and show you the graph a little bit later. Usually it's like a couple days and then it comes back up, and you then go into maybe a couple days of PMS right before challenging times, right before your cycle. But I had that whole second half of my cycle was just like debilitating pain, would have to was really struggling to be at work, would have to, call in and set things aside, and had to quit my schooling that I was doing. It was like really, really debilitating. And so once I learned that it was hormonal, and looking at things through a perspective of holistic, I didn't really want to do things the medical way, which the only medical way, which many people are aware that there's just like very little that can be offered to people with hormonal issues. If you go in to the doctor and have some kind of hormonal issue, pretty much the only solutions that are offered are birth control, which is just generally a pill or sometimes a hormonal implant or shots that mimic the hormones that are supposed to be happening, the ups and downs, but they're really mellow. The little ups and downs are really, really small instead of big. So it makes those ups and downs a little bit less extreme. And more regular. So just like any medical approach, it kind of like masks the issue and can be amazing for really challenging issues that maybe you don't have time or the capacity to do things a natural way, or they're slower, or they're really extreme, so it can kind of override what's going on underneath. And I actually tried that, and it made things worse, which is true for a lot of people. And just being more naturally minded, I don't like the whole like masking, because there's always like something going on underneath, and it's really common for people to be taking birth control over a long period of time and then stop taking them because they want to start having children, or because they've been taking it so long and just want to be off. And then all of those issues hormonally that were there before are still there, and they come back, right? So there's tons of people who are struggling to get pregnant after they come off birth control because all of the hormone imbalances just got worse over time. And the overriding of those hormones didn't make them more fertile. It just kind of covered it up and kept them as they were, or it made things worse over time. And for me, taking them, my body just didn't respond well. It didn't help, and it seemed to just make things worse anyway. I tried a couple different options. The other option that doctors will often give you is to just take the uterus out. My issue wasn't, usually if that's the case, it's like endometriosis or tumors or things, they'll suggest just taking it out. PMDD, it's not as common for that to be suggested, so that wasn't even offered, and I wouldn't have done it anyway. It's not generally my approach to want to go things that extreme at the beginning. I'm always wanting to look at things at a more lifestyle and natural approach better. So I just continued to learn my rhythms and adjust my hormones or my lifestyle to my hormonal rhythms, and start supplementing with herbs. And over about a 7-month period, my symptoms completely disappeared. They completely disappeared. I no longer have PMDD, and that is all because of the very simple, not complex herbal formulas that I make and sell, that are just like really basic kind of multivitamins for hormones, but mostly the lifestyle changes. And I've started studying hormones more, starting studying how our lifestyle impacts, because that's what hormones are. They're responders to the environment. So like when we're stressed, our bodies feel that, our nervous systems feel that, and then hormones are flooded into our system. Cortisol is flooded to help us deal with our stressors. Oxytocin, dopamine are things that are flooded in our system that make us feel good when we're in a situation that is for us pleasurable, enjoyable. So they're very reactive to the environment. Our hormones, that's what our hormone system is. It's a responder to our lifestyle and environment. So learning the natural ups and downs of hormone cycle, what a normal healthy cycle is supposed to be throughout the month, I started working with that. I just started adjusting my lifestyle that supported what my hormones were naturally doing. This is called cyclical living. People know this a lot if they're athletes, and being like cycle syncing, right? Like eating cyclically, working out cyclically. But those things to me are even like secondary to just like how I talk to myself. What type of social activities was I engaging in? Just being like, oh, there's certain times of the month where I'm more energetic and social, and other times where I'm just like wanting to rest and be more internal. And just started aligning my life with that. And it was radical how much changed in my life. It was just like, it really blew me away, where I was like, this is it. Like I need to teach this to everyone. There's just like, who's doing this? And that was, gosh, a decade or more ago. And since then, it's been so beautiful to see a lot more hormone educators out there. And it's definitely something that's, well, for one, getting more medical funding to do research on, because the menstruating body is not even, it's fairly new to even have research on them. That's why we don't have a lot of even medical options. A lot of the medical studies have been done on male bodies. Excuse my cat. And so there's more funding out there that's starting to happen for research, and people are just like me, like being like, what? Like, I need to know about this. And there's more and more education out there. So that really started my passion around just like wanting to teach this. I started doing presentations and workshops. After doing those, I realized that so many women just like wanted a space to talk about this stuff. It's just like, when do you just bring this stuff up? You know, it's just like kind of this culturally quiet thing that's often been stigmatized and maybe even shamed like over time, right? So it's just like, when is the time to even like talk about this stuff? And when I started doing these presentations, I'm generally, and there'll be less of that here, which I'm sad about, because usually I'm engaging a lot more. And I can't see y'all too well, but if you ever want to like interject, just like wave a hand and say something, and I'll try to create a little bit of space for that. But so I started hosting like a little bit more like kind of like conversation circle style, like a support group style presentations, where there was just like questions and time to talk and witness each other, because it's just like, wow, we actually have a lot more wisdom around this than we realize, and like we actually do know how to take care of ourselves more than we think. And just like witnessing other people gives us permission to take care of ourselves. And so I started really hosting a lot of like group support group kind of circles. And then in addition to that, started taking clients out of a one-on-one like health clinic, where I was taking one-on-one sessions, just talking about medical histories, giving support, offering herbs. And then just this past year, did the Mayan abdominal massage body work. And that's just like, wow, it really brings everything that I've been doing into this really beautiful channel, where it's showing the lifestyle, the clinical side of things, the lifestyle support, and the somatic body awareness all together. So I kind of filter all of those through the body work now, and that's now the practice that I've been opening. I just moved to Mancus a year ago, and just opened the massage space at Tyler's Wellness down the corner, just like a couple months ago. Okay, can we actually just take off mute and see if there's any responses or comments around any of that or questions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no pressure. Just want to create space.
Yeah, I think the one thing you said about, having symptoms through your cycle, because I get severe chest pain, certain time, it's severe, it's been happening for 2 years. Chest pain right at the same time of my cycle, and if the chest pain doesn't come, then I'll have really weird, like, physical sensations of anxiety. Yeah, and then it just like goes away like it never happened. So yeah, that's
Totally.
curious that up, because I started noticing that there was a cycle with it, and I started logging what that looks like, and what that chest pain like actually is, and where it comes from, and trauma, childhood, safety, fear, like all the things
Yes.
coming out even, and yeah.
Yeah, yeah, thanks for sharing. Beautiful awareness. And it's so true. It's like when we don't see the patterns, we just are kind of like victims to the waves of it, right? But when we can start to see it, then we're like, oh, like what is that? There's a pattern, and you're already connecting the dots from childhood this or whatever it is. And then like when we have that awareness, then we're able to then nourish ourselves and support ourselves better. And or just detach from the story around it. Sometimes it's just like we get to be more of a witness to it instead of just kind of like wrapped up in it. So, yeah, amazing that you're able to witness that. Cool, thanks. So this is Donna Lehio. Can you see my pointer on here? Do you see the little circle? Okay, cool. So this little sweet man is Don Eligio. He's from Belize. He's the man who created this bodywork modality. And then this here is Rosita Arvigo. You'll often see Mayan abdominal massage with the name Arvigo in front of it, Arvigo therapy or Arvigo abdominal massage. That's because Rosita is the one who kind of brought this modality to the United States. So she's actually from Chicago, and she was studying in Belize herbalism and had a practice there. I forget what it's called. It's a little bit like chiropractic. There's some kind of a body work that she was doing with the herbalism and living in Belize. And everyone in the community was talking about, oh, you have to meet Don Eligio. He's the village medicine man. He's the one that, helps everyone in the village. So you guys will have to connect at some point. And everyone's talking. She's witnessing that everyone's talking very highly of him. So she's looking for him and keeping her eye out, but very also busy with her own practice. And one day he shows up at her practice, and she didn't know what he looked like, so she didn't know it was him at first. But he's asking some questions about if she has this specific herb that he needs that doesn't grow there, but he knows that this woman is from the United States, and he was looking for this specific herb for himself that he doesn't use with other people, but he needs for him, and he's wondering if she has it since she's from there. And anyway, they connect the dots that they are they know each other, and she helps him, and they begin this relationship. And she starts kind of like courting him as her mentor. She wants to learn about the plants there, right? So she can have access to the plants that are surrounding her, and that the people are familiar with. And she starts kind of building this relationship with Don Eligio. They become friends, and he very resistantly starts teaching her this modality. She keeps kind of begging him to teach, and he's like, no, like you. And I've met Rosita, and she tells this story so beautifully, and it's just so potent, and I want to share that it's a holistic, natural modality, but it's also very intuitive, and the story just kind of like shows some of the aspect, and what kind of separates this work and why I love it so much is it really weaves medicine and science with intuitive, mystical, spiritual even, work together, which is very like the female body. Right? Part of why the medical system doesn't love studying the female body and the menstruating body is because it's not the same every day. It's pretty complex and it's very mysterious. You know, like the whole, like, science hasn't been able to explain yet why when women come together, their bleeds start syncing up. You know, like, it's hard to explain. There's something very mysterious and like not in a box about we can't put the female body in a box, and so there kind of has to be, in some sense, this like intuitive spiritual side of things is his kind of approach. So some of these stories just kind of share a little bit of like why that works and why this modality is really great specifically for menstruators and kind of that mysterious way of cyclical living. So he always, I'll just read this quote. He says, "Most people think too much. Get them to laugh and half their trouble and sickness will go away. And the blessed herbs will do the rest." And this is actually pretty scientific when it comes to hormones, because dopamine and oxytocin help to build our cortisol levels, and if we're really stressed, we need cortisol, and most of us don't have enough because we have too much stress in our lives. And so, like, truly having more joy in your life, having less stress, then helps your progesterone stay balanced and helps you stay fertile and less period pain, you know? So like managing stress levels is extremely important for anything, right? But especially when we're talking about hormones, because our stress hormones are hormones and they impact the rest of our hormones. And so he is talking to Rosita, and the resistance to teach her, he was like, oh, well, you know, she's sitting there writing notes as he's teaching her, and he's just like, oh, they sent you to school, didn't they? And she goes, well, yeah, they sent me to a lot of school. She has like, I think like 2 doctorates or something, right? She's like, was studied in Chicago and is very educated in our society. And he goes, well, you gringos have all the information up here, but in order to heal, you have to have it in here. And, you know, so he was just resistant that she would mess it up because she would intellectualize it all. But he slowly continued to teach her, and they learned from each other a lot. He didn't even know how to read, Don Eligio. But why it's important to also have it here. He would talk a lot about how doing the physical healing without spiritual healing is just like doing surgery without stitching up the wound. And this is like, you can balance the hormones on a practical level, but if you still are remaining in this toxic relationship that's causing abuse and causing you to be stressed out, like, it doesn't matter that much. Like, you're just going to continue to reopen the wound. You're going to continue to, if you're not doing that emotional, spiritual work, you're just going to keep repeating the patterns, and sometimes just like make it worse. Sometimes even just make it worse. You know, you can control so much on the physical level. That's really important. You know, we need the massage, we need the herbs. But then if you're only doing that, you know, it's like this, you see the people in the natural world, oh, I'm doing things the natural way, and they have a huge supplement shelf, you know, that they take 50 supplements a day, but they're still eating the sugar, they're still in the super stressful job, and it's like, it's not really, it's maybe helping them maintain certain aspects, but like, it's not doing much. And so much of our culture really overcomplicates things. And like Don Eligio says that, one of my things here, he says something about like, this work is amazingly simple and simply amazing. And like most things in life are that way, right? We like complicate all of the things in life. And Allison spoke really beautifully to this in her nutrition presentation a couple weeks ago as well. It's just like we can talk about all these complex things, and that's good. Like, it's good to have those, but if we're not also just talking about the basics, like what are we even doing? Like, let's talk about like the foundational basic things first, and then like we can build upon that. And that's like a philosophy that I've had for a long time, and he really brings this in a lot. And that's like part of that is when we're not doing the spiritual work, it's really easy to avoid the simple answers. And simple doesn't mean easy often. Sometimes it is, but sometimes the simple spiritual answers we avoid them because it's difficult to just set the boundary. It's difficult to walk away from that one friendship or to have that hard conversation. We'd rather just have the pill. We'd rather just go to the doctor and have them do the physical, do the surgery and then go back to life. It's just like, well, if you're just gonna, get the hip surgery, but then continue to lift weights in the wrong way, like you're just gonna keep damaging yourself and maybe even make it worse. So they talk a lot about this in the modality. And that's why, you saw in a couple slides ago, he said something about make them laugh and let the plants do the rest. In herbalism, I've studied not clinical herbalism, but folk herbalism. And with folk herbalism, there's a lot more relationship to nature. So you're like spending time, there's a beliefs around like spending time in the garden with the plants can be just as healing as taking the medicine. Similar concept, like we can just take the supplements all day, but if we don't like have some presence while we're doing it and we're just in this kind of like continual consumption, going, we kind of like miss the whole point. So like sometimes it's just being with the plants. Sometimes just like going through a walk in the garden, like that does the healing, right? It's like sometimes we don't need to ingest a nervine. Sometimes we just need to go like smell the flower, and it does the same thing for our nervous system, and there's science to that. So they talk a lot about like this is a mandatory thing to open the bodywork session with prayer and spiritual bathing is what they call it, which many traditions all around the world have some form of this spiritual bathing. Jewish people with the baths, I think it's mitzvah or something. Catholicism with the holy water. And the baptisms, and there's in India, the baths and the prayers. There's so many traditions all over the world that have some kind of ritual around receiving benefits from like bathing in water. And Donna Lehio talks about the plants and the water having a spirit that finishes the work for us, that we as humans can only do so much, and that we need the plants to finish the job for us. Similar to the medical model where they're like, yeah, we can do this, but then you also need the medicine. And without one or the other, it's not a full thing. It's kind of the same concept, but in like the spiritual and natural side of things. It's like we can do so much, and we will also miss some of the gaps, and so the spirit of the water and the plants will finish the job for us. So we always start the session with just kind of like creating a container with the prayer. So it's the spiritual bath is just putting plants in water and setting them on the body and allowing the energy of those plants to just like kind of help us sink into the moment. So there's like some kind of like spiritual connection to the plants, and then there's also just like this really practical like nervous system response of like there's the bowl of water and you hear the trickling water. There's all sorts of science of like hearing trickling water calming the nervous system, so that it just kind of like helps you to you feel the water and smell the plants. Usually I'll use something like aromatic rosemary or something, and it helps us to just sink into the nervous system before entering into the practice. So Donna Lehio calls the womb the center of our being, and he goes as far as saying that the women bring bring fortune. And this is actually disconnected, but I saw this cute little reel today. It was a Tibetan monk talking about in their tradition that having a woman, just a relaxed woman laying on the couch in your in your vicinity is good fortune. It's really good fortune to have a relaxed woman around. And and Don Eligio has some of this concept. He's like, and this is a picture of them. He would let her come with, before he even started teaching her, he would let her come with to harvest plants because he believed that having a woman around, the nature is more fortunate to us when a woman is around. And so there's some aspect of just like women's work and the womb being the center of vitality and nourishment, and then like the womb in our body is the center of, so some people will say, you know, it's the heart. He'll say like it's the womb, that when the womb is, or this here, when the uterus is out of balance, the whole life is out of balance. So this is the pelvis bone, this is our uterus, right? So the uterus here is in the middle. So here's the hip bones, and the uterus is like resting in the center of that pelvic bowl. When the uterus is twisted one side or the other, it cuts off the communication from the ovaries and the fallopian tubes, which is where the hormones are produced. When it's tilted, not in center, cutting off communication, the hormones can't clearly communicate to the rest of the body. They're pinched off. They're not smooth. They start to lack a smooth communication. That's why our progesterone isn't part of the reason why our progesterone isn't communicating the full way is because the uterus is kind of out of place. So the whole modality of the physical aspect of the massaging the womb is just allowing that uterus to come. Oh, hide my stitches. They're scary looking. To bring that uterus back to center so the hormones can communicate clearly, and the muscles around the uterus are not cramping up. So again, the uterus, this organ resting inside the hip bones. Okay, here's the hip bones again, but with like some of the ligaments and muscles. The massage is moving these ligaments and muscles so that uterus that's kind of tilted over here can float back to the center. Okay, let me see if I can move my picture here. So this is the uterus here. There's the ovary, fallopian tube. This is the uterus in a natural place. If it's often that this is tilted back. When it's tilted back, this is the colon. It can pinch the colon. This is why a lot of people during their period have just like horrible digestion, right? And we think that it's normal. But generally that means that the uterus is kind of like pushed back a little bit. When the uterus is in its rightful place, the colon, and there's many reasons why digestive issues come, but it's pretty common. I'll ask in my intake, like if your digestion is off, almost always the uterus is also pushed back onto the colon. So the massage can just help pull the uterus back to center. So we're just like massaging some of these. The ligaments loosen up and it naturally just floats back to center. It removes the pressure from the colon, and the digestive tract starts to have the space that it needs to, the blood flow that it needs to do the healing that needs to happen. And there's other things that impact that, like like the nutrition, having more fiber, things like this, in addition to. But if you're doing those things and the uterus is pushing on this, it can make those things less impactful, take longer, more painful. So like doing the massage can help relieve some of that pressure from the colon or the bladder. This is also similarly why certain parts of the cycle you have to pee more, or in general you have to pee more. It's really common, or like the urge to come really fast, and this is really common after postpartum, right? The uterus will often slump forward and put pressure on the bladder. That's why, this is exactly why pregnant women have to pee more, because the uterus, which is carrying the baby, is pushing on the bladder. So it's similar when there's not a baby in there. Sometimes the uterus is still out of position a little bit and putting pressure on the bladder. And then this is like all the intestines up here, similar depending on like what direction and how much tension is being pulled from these ligaments. It can put pressure on different parts of the organs. This is where menstrual cramps can come from. Back pain can be impacted by this a lot. And so first, we actually start the massage with upper abdominal strokes, because there's the blood flow from the heart down to the womb. So we're opening up the arterial flow in the upper abdomen that's getting blood flow to the uterus. And then we're doing some techniques on the uterus, all to just get that the ligaments loose enough to let the uterus come back to center. Generally, most of us have a little bit of tilt or something from patterns, accidents. This can happen from like chronic or like certain biking over time. You know, you can just slowly start to tilt forward, and if you're not doing also things to bring it back, it can just like slowly start to get stuck that way. A lot of athletes will struggle with this, and this is where like way back in the day it was like common for women to like not do sports or something, because like there was some level of awareness around this. It's like it's actually like not healthy or safe for women to like lift a lot, and like some of those stigmas, this is why. And we know now that there's all sorts of things that we can do in conjunction, so that we actually can do a lot of those things, but we actually do need different things to do before or after, or to be aware of if we have a certain amount of tilt to not do at certain times. So this is part of what I will talk to the lifestyle side of things in session, where, okay, you have this issue, you have this lifestyle, what do we need to do so that you can keep having the lifestyle that you want? And what about your lifestyle needs to adjust a little bit so that you can keep doing those things, and not have something eventually catch up to you where you can't anymore. And often the times, you know, there's so much pain that I have a lot of, since moving to this area, a lot of people doing wilderness guiding and struggling because certain parts of their cycle, it's really hard to do this. You know, it's really hard to stay up, but that's their job and they want to keep doing it. And I'm not like, you have to stop doing that job. I'm saying, okay, do this body work. And I teach people how to do some of the basic massage on themselves, which can be done daily. And there's certain things that you kind of need someone else to do. And there's other things that, like the basic ligaments for things in the front here, people can do on themselves. So teach them how to do some of that, and like how to feel when there's certain tightness in areas, and then like how to prep for guiding. Like if you're premenstrual during this time and you're having to lift this type of things, these are the types of things that you can do to support yourself, or make requests of, or ask for help with, or be prepared with having extra food during certain times versus others where you can get away with not having it, things like that. We'll just kind of talk about lifestyle and how to support some of the things that need to happen in order to have the lifestyle that you want to have. Again, this is what Don Eligio says. This work is amazingly simple and simply amazing. Because it's just like allowing that uterus to come back to center. The hormones are communicating clearly. There's pressure that's coming off of the other organs that are in that area. and it just like allows the hormones to balance naturally. We're not having to even add, unless things are very extreme, like not having to even add or change too much about herbs or medicines or anything, which I often, in extreme cases, will offer in conjunction with. But this is kind of like just like the basics. It's like, let's try this first, because all the herbs aren't also going to work if you're not also, if your uterus is way over here and there's just like so much tightness, or scar tissue can also happen from surgeries. If you had I had someone recently who had a staph infection in their left hip, and many years ago, I could feel all of the scar tissue. That scar tissue pulled the ligaments and pulled the uterus, right? So I was like, do you feel on this side? It's like right here where that scar tissue is. All we need to do is start massaging here regularly, stretching those muscles and ligaments back out, and that uterus will slowly come back to center, and the hormones will start naturally balancing themselves. When you start only doing the herbs, those things it'll take a lot longer and often won't do the trick. And this just like, it usually like speeds the process up. I'm always so amazed at how quickly people see results. I mean, people have come to me with ovarian cysts that they've been struggling with for over a decade, one session, and they're like, this is the first bleed that I've ever not had pain in the last decade, after one session. And I'm just like, yep, all it did is create a little bit of space for that uterus to come off that one pressure point. And I mean, it usually will take a little bit more time than that, but like it's impressive, like how quickly and how simple some of those solutions are. Okay, I want to pause there and just open it up. Any thoughts or responses from the things that I've shared so far?
One thing, Abigail, I'm just fascinated by I guess I had never, despite knowing anatomy and physiology, I had never thought about the impacts of like physical trauma, physical life, even riding a bike or something like that, on the position of our uterus within our pelvic bowl. That's just fascinating to me. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Totally. Great, thanks. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit. This is what I always weave this in to. It's not like I can help you, and even many doctors now, but like especially a natural approach to things. There's this concept of like, we want you to eventually like not need us or need us less, right? So like I can do a certain amount and offer you a certain amount of support, but if that's all you do, it's gonna be, for one, really expensive for you to keep coming back to me every single week or multiple days a week or something to deal with these things. Generally, in order to sustain those results, like there's things that you need to do within your own lifestyle, right? So, and like your own mindset. And this is where I started before the body work, and how I healed my PMDD and PTSD mostly, without even the body work and the hands-on. It was just lifestyle things and awareness, and it was all through just having education around what the heck is happening with our hormones throughout the month. Real basic. I mean, these are just like the three kind of like main hormones that impact us throughout the month. There's a lot of different hormones that impact us, but this is just like the basics of the hormones that like you might know some of, but like I'm like wildly surprised how many people don't know this stuff still and how much it impacts us. And there's just so much to learn. But these are like the real bare minimum basics of what I feel like is just like ought to be taught in like middle school, right? Which I'm working on, by the way. And okay, so day 1 is the first day that you start bleeding. When we're talking about like, oh, I'm on day 17 of my cycle. Day 1 is the first day that you see full blood. Our hormones are actually the lowest at that time. We have a little bit of them in our system, but they're not impacting us very much. They're pretty low for the first like 7 days or so. And this is pretty generalized. This is like a 30-day-ish cycle map here. And you know that you can range anywhere from like 20 some to 30 some days, and that could be the same every cycle for you, or it could fluctuate. So similar, like that estrogen, if your cycle days are longer, it might be a little bit further out or closer in, but this is like it. We will always go through the same ups and downs. They just might be like not quite as high and maybe longer. Drawn out. But around day 7, the estrogen starts to rise. Estrogen is generally the hormone that makes us more creative, have more ideas, we have more energy, and it's rising and rising until ovulation. On a primal level, it's what's helping us to attract a mate, for the possibility of getting pregnant, right? It brings blood flow into our face. It gives us a little bit more like glow. Our lips and our cheeks are more red. We literally have brighter eyes during this time. And so there's generally more like playfulness. This can also come with some anxiety for some people, because it's almost like how some people love caffeine and some people it makes them have heart attacks and stressed out. Estrogen is like a little bit like caffeine. And depending on what season of your life you're in, like sometimes a lot of ideas is fun and sometimes a lot of ideas is really overwhelming. I know in this season of my life, I'm really trying to like focus on a few specific projects more. And so sometimes like all of the creativity that comes during that time is actually like a little bit overwhelming. It's just like, oh gosh, like too many ideas. But like knowing that about myself, I can then not start all the projects. I often like will write project ideas down during that time. But the whole like aligning to our lifestyle is knowing that about ourselves. Like this is a great time generally to do more like community activities, networking events, being more social, trying new things, doing more sensual things with your partner that you're maybe nervous about. Like it's a time where you're like a little bit less attached to outcomes, taking risks. Progesterone is something that makes us more analytical and more discerning about stuff. Maybe not putting ourselves in a situation where we need to be extremely discerning during that time, stepping away from some of those and being like, maybe not a good idea. Not a great idea usually for me to go shopping during that time. I'm like, yeah, whatever, like let's just do it, or like playing into that and like knowing like, yes, this is, or knowing that about yourself and be like, okay, I have $200, shopping will be way more fun during this time, but I'm not going to go over this limit. It's just like starting to know and track what some of those patterns for you are individually and like how to support yourself during that time. It's really fun once you start like seeing the patterns in yourself and knowing how to respond to them, right? So the estrogen's rising until ovulation. We have a little boost of testosterone during that time. Let's see the picture. The ovaries here that hold all the eggs and those fallopian tubes are actually not connected. The ovaries kind of floating here, and all the little hairs here are holding and kind of floating. And the egg actually needs to jump from the ovary into the fallopian tube. It has this very like, let's go, I'm going to make this daring risk and jump into the fallopian tube. It's kind of like this impulsive big jump, and it's very like this masculine energy, and you might even start feeling it once you start noticing that jump. is just like, yeah, like I can do anything, like let's go, and just like you have this boost of energy, which, you know, like let's take advantage of that day or two, ladies. You know, it's like we don't always get that, and utilizing that to our potential is like really powerful, and not just for like the primal procreation, right? You know, I always say that like women are life givers, not just for creating physical children, but for creating beauty in the world, right? It's just like we have this hormone cycle every single month, regardless if we get pregnant or not. And it's like pregnancy is not the only reason why we have these hormones. It's also like to bring in creative energy and like, you know, take the risk to go make that project happen or whatever. So like knowing that that energy is there can be really helpful to go take a risk or utilize that daring energy. If there's a hard conversation that needs to happen, often it's like a little bit easier to go do that. Schedule your interview during this time, you know, when possible. You know, it's fun to play with. But then like right after ovulation, estrogen drops pretty dramatically here. Sometimes for some people, this progesterone comes in and like up here, and it really soothes that drop. That drop is not very even noticeable because the progesterone comes in and kind of soothes the drop. In this picture here, sometimes it comes a little bit later, and that drop can kind of be like, whoa, like what the heck? I just had all of this like really lighthearted energy, and now suddenly it's gone. So that it's just something to be aware of, like noticing that drop. And then the progesterone starts coming in, and progestation, it's coming in to maybe nurture the egg that is going to be gestated, right? So like if that egg was fertilized during that time, now progesterone is coming in to carry and nurture the egg to gestate what was fertilized. And so then that's giving us an opportunity to be very, and again, like a really primal level, we're scanning the environment to see if it's a safe place to gestate a baby. And that's why all of the little things that are nitpicky and annoying and not working for us are really highlighted during this time. We're analyzing it, literally like heightens our senses. We can see things we normally can't see. There's actually things that change in our eyesight and, you know, make us read into, right? Like our partner's facial expressions more, like I saw what you did there. And we're reading into things more because our eyes are literally picking up on more light and more sensation during that time. Our nervous system is actually able to feel and smell more. We'll smell different things during that time. So all of our senses are more heightened for the purpose of primally like seeing if it's a safe place to gestate a baby. Similarly, like if it's not a baby, our bodies still do this, even if our eggs are not gestated, right? And it's showing us all the things that are getting in the way, what's working and what's not working to birth our projects, birth our dreams, our fulfillment, and have healthy relationships. And so just kind of like reframing that time to be like, okay, like, yeah, this is showing me what's working and what's not working. How can I adjust, set more boundaries? And so this is the general concept of like the inner seasons. And I'm not going to go too much into it now because I think we're close on time here. But I have this whole teaching in my workshops where these ups and downs really reflect a lot about like the seasons of nature, right? The estrogen's coming up. There's lots of ideas. It's springtime. Things are starting to bloom, but things are not fully grown yet. And then like it kind of dips down a little bit, and then we have kind of both estrogen and progesterone. We're kind of like in this, our bodies are literally more warm during this time. We're more grounded. Things are steady. Things are starting to bloom, the inner summer. Then autumn comes, like things are starting to compost in our mind. We're starting to set boundaries. So anyway, I have this whole kind of inner seasons concept, which is often what I go to in my workshop. So I do the one-on-one body work. And bring some of this concept into just dialogue in those sessions. And then we go into it in group settings in the group offerings that I do. So I'm just starting to do some of the group workshops. If that's something that you're interested in, I would have brought my email list. If any of you want it, you could write it down and give it to Allison, or you can go to my website and put your email in there. And I'm just starting to do some group workshops here, which is really, really fun. And then we go into similar concepts into the one-on-one sessions as well. So yeah, I'm so happy to be here. Oh, this is so fun. I thought maybe I would just like not have the full time, but it's just like it's so fun to talk about. It's like, oh, it was pretty good timing. I didn't practice the timing of it. But yeah, I'm like fairly new to this community, so it's just been so fun to kind of like see what people are ready for. And I'm just really open to feedback. If there's specific areas that you're wanting to know more about for group things, please like just reach out to me. I have my Instagram handle there and then my website. So yeah, here I can stay here a little bit if anyone has questions. Otherwise, just yeah, would love to hear from you in other forms as well. Thank you. Any other comments or questions while I'm here?
I know I'm not crazy. Yeah, those are the big things.
Someone said no questions. I'm just glad to know I'm not crazy.
Yes, yes. Totally normal. I know. I always say like there's a method to the madness, like we are crazy. There's just like rhythm to it.
Yeah, when you start tapping into and like learning about the cycle, and you actually feel like I'm saying, like my severe chest pain is only on the left side of my chest and pierces through the back of my shoulder blade, and I'm like, man, like what is going on? And then I start tapping in, and then it creates more fear, in a sense, like my deep trauma fear, but then also it's just like, oh, what am I stepping into? My world is expanding. I'm like up leveling, and it's like you're like unsure about that world,
Yeah.
but then you link it and connect it to everything. Yeah.
Totally.
So.
Yeah. Sometimes awareness doesn't necessarily make it easier. Sometimes it makes it more difficult, right? It's just like sometimes it can even invoke more fear or confusion or hopelessness. And that's why like getting support and doing the group work is like so supportive. And I think like, man, women are especially, I mean, humans in general, but I think women are especially like really not supposed to do this stuff alone. Like historically, we're the most isolated that we've ever been with this kind of stuff. It's like we used to just come together on a regular basis and talk about these things. And that's why it's the circle style that I'll offer now is like, you share something, someone else shares something, it changes everything for you because now you have the tools. For one, you don't feel alone, you're not crazy, you relate to someone, and then they give you some kind of tool that they do, and you're like, oh yeah, that works for me too. And just like witnessing each other and feeling that in each other's nervous system, there's something like so potent and ancient about that. It's like we need that. We need that group support and the tools to know how to respond to those situations.
Yeah, I think that's the key is being able to have the tools, because there's other areas that like I don't have the tools, but I have this awareing, this intuition, this knowing, and then it's like, okay, now what do I do with it? Am I going crazy and I'm just making this stuff up? But it's like, oh wait, I'm not actually crazy. This stuff is real. But it's like, where do I find the tools to be able to like handle it, manage it, that kind of a thing, and actually like be able to flow with it.
Totally.
Outside of my mind. Mind traps me in the flow, kind of thing. So yeah, tools is definitely the key.
Yeah, totally. Well, come on to the group things and come to a session because literally like one thing will offer you so many tools. Right? It's like it's not necessarily something that you even need to do. Like, I mean, I think there's something really potent about community around these things and like having a consistent like people that you're bouncing ideas off of, but also like that, I mean, I'm telling you that the self-care massage is, I mean, it's a wildly simple tool. You learn it once and it's just like in your pocket. So would love to hear more about some of your sensations and show you how to do that.
Now, what are the groups that you do? Is that
The
a regular,
groups,
a regular?
yeah. Yeah, so I've just been doing them in Mancus since I've been here, and I'm just starting to kind of feel out where to do them in a group space in Durango. So if you have a specific location that you would be interested in or convenient or know about, feel free to let me know. But I've been doing them in Mancus, super casual, very just like visual, like village style, where we just get together, open with like a little meditation. I'd usually have some kind of topic around this. And we just do like a cycle check in, just being like, these are the sensations I feel right now, or this is what's coming up for me, and this is where I'm at in my cycle, and just like witnessing each other in that. And then usually some kind of like topic of conversation where we're focusing on some different aspect. Last month we talked about ovulation and just like some of the different sensations and things that come up around that, and just like it's very community led, so whatever the group is needing, I kind of help facilitate those conversations based off of the education and knowledge I have. I just kind of like guide the conversations. And so it's very just like community. We usually just like drink tea and like have a snack and talk about hormones, and then they're really sweet. And that's kind of how they've been so far. And I'll do some that are a little bit more workshop style as time goes too. And I'm just kind of open to receiving requests about what the community is needing. So if you have specific requests, feel free to let me know.
Yeah, is it on your website when you hold them over in Memphis?
Yeah. Yeah, you can just put in to sign up for my newsletter there, and I just send out monthly emails for those groups.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, thanks for being here, and yeah, proud of you for having that awareness already, and thanks for letting me be here with my crippled hands.
You're awesome, Abigail. Thank you for pivoting and doing this virtually.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for helping out. All right, well, have a beautiful
Totally.
rest of the day.
Yep, you
Thank
too.
you.
Bye.
Bye.